Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are going to allow just a little more time for attendees to log in and join us. We will get started shortly. All right, I see attendees coming in. Very good. Excellent. All right. Very nice. And we have confirmation that we can be heard by the attendees. So thank you very much for that. All right. Wonderful, wonderful. Just wait a little bit longer as people are filing in. Welcome. Wonderful. Okay. Well, once again, good evening, and thank you for joining us for the Miami-Dade Transportation Planning Organization's first 2050 Long-Range Transportation Plan Smart Map virtual outreach event. My name is Elizabeth Rockwell, and I'm the TPO's Chief Communications Officer. And I will be your main guide as we move through this evening's conversation roadmap. First and foremost, this virtual event is being recorded, and by the way, it will be posted on the TPO's YouTube channel afterwards. All attendees will remain muted throughout the event. Attendees can submit any questions and comments using the Zoom webinar chat feature throughout the event. And if you experience any technical difficulties, please contact 1-800-418-0524 so that a technical support team member can assist you. Now, let's go over this evening's conversation roadmap. Presentations will be provided by the 2050 LRTP Smart Map co-project managers, Ms. Francesca Taylor and Mr. Tawari Edmondson. They will provide you with an opportunity through interactive tools to identify the long-term aspirations for Miami-Dade County's transportation system, which in turn will then inform the development of the 2050 LRTP Smart Maps goals and objectives. Next slide. They will begin with an overview of what an LRTP is, which will include an interactive Slido survey to capture your thoughts on goals for the future of transportation in Miami-Dade County. You will then be taken on a tour of the 2050 LRTP Smart Maps website and virtual room. We will end the event with any final questions and closing remarks. So without further ado, at this time, I'd like to hand over the steering wheel to Ms. Francesca Taylor.
Thank you for the introduction, Elizabeth. Let's jump into the long-range transportation plan. First, on the next slide, you'll see that all of our planning efforts at the Miami-Dade TPO stem from our mission and vision. Our mission is that we plan transportation facilities and services that are integrated and efficient while providing effective community participation. We do this by considering equity, accessibility, resiliency, innovation, and economic competitiveness. These values are at the heart of our long-range transportation plan. Now, you may be wondering, what is the long-range transportation plan, or LRTP? And on this slide, you'll see that the LRTP is a federally mandated document for metropolitan planning organizations with populations of more than 50,000 residents. Miami-Dade County is home to 2.7 million residents, and as such, we plan our transportation projects over a horizon of 25 years. The minimum requirement from the federal government is 20 years, so we go over and beyond. Also, this document is updated every 5 years. And you may be thinking that the LRTP is just another plan that sits on the shelf. However, because it is federally mandated, one of the required pieces of the document is the cost feasible plan. This is where we outline the projects that we need over the next 25 years, and we organize them into priority bands. And the priority bands are structured so that projects can move from one priority to the next into implementation. So for instance, we may have a project that starts in priority band 3, but as time goes on, it moves to priority band 2 and then priority band 1. Priority band 1 is consistent with our transportation improvement plan, which is really when projects receive funding for planning, design, and construction. Additionally, our cost feasible plan is consistent with our other partner agency plans, such as the Department of Transportation and Public Works Transit Development Plan, their Transportation Master Plan, and the Florida Department of Transportation's Strategic Intermodal System, or SIS plan. There are also other partner agencies whose plans are integrated into our cost feasible plan. So without further ado, I introduce to you our 2050 LRTP Smart Map, Mobility, Accessibility, and Prosperity. Roll footage. Awesome. I hope that you're excited about the 2050 LRTP Smart Map 2050, because I'm excited to talk you through the development process. It takes 2 years for us to develop the LRTP, and that 2-year process is broken up into 5 phases. The first phase is the people phase. This is our public involvement phase, and it represents you, the people of Miami-Dade County. During this phase, we will engage with you in different virtual outreach events. And throughout this phase is actually the longest running phase because it spans the entirety of the 2 years. At the conclusion of this phase, we will understand more of who we are in Miami-Dade County and what we want in our transportation network. Next, the performance phase sets our goals and objectives. This is important so that we can measure our success in the future. Our goals and objectives will be taken to our TPO governing board this spring for adoption. Next is the projects phase. In the projects phase, we analyze the congestion that we have in our transportation network. We create a list of project needs to address that congestion. And then we evaluate alternative scenarios or alternative groups of projects that best address our concerns. Then next, in our priorities phase, we compare our needs plan with the amount of funding that we have available. So up until this point, we've created a long grocery list, so to speak, of all the projects that we want, but we need to compare that against the foreseeable revenues that we'll have between now and 2050 so that we can prioritize our projects in those priority bands that we mentioned earlier. Last but not least, in our policy phase, we analyze all of the projects to see if any major transportation projects may affect the environment of our communities, and we compile all of the things that we've learned into our final LRTP document and adopt the 2050 Smart Map. Adoption of the Smart Map is scheduled for summer of 2024. Now, I know I've just said a lot, so I'm going to take a moment to pause. And while I do so, I invite you to complete our bicycling needs survey. You can do this by using your phone, aiming it at the QR code using your QR scanner, or navigating to the URL that is linked below. And while you're doing that, I'll ask Elizabeth, do we have any questions?
Okay, thank you, Francesca. Let's see, looking and checking it out. Yeah, actually, Francesca, we have an interesting question, which is actually a very good question. So what is the Transportation Planning Organization?
Okay, that is a good question. So the Transportation Planning Organization is an agency created by the federal government to ensure that our local communities and elected officials are engaged in the transportation planning process. As I mentioned before, transportation planning organizations are required for any populations more than 50,000 people, and they can actually go by different names, such as a metropolitan planning organization or even a transportation planning agency. Our Miami-Dade TPO governing board is compiled of local officials, and their job is to help guide our long-range transportation planning process and our other federally required documents.
All right. Okay, great. Well, yeah, we definitely need to know who we are before we move forward with all this. Fantastic. Great question. All right, there's another question we have here. Yes. Do you have a committee for the LRTP? Another good question.
Yes, that is a good question. So we do have an LRTP steering committee. This committee is created of transportation planning officials, or planning agency partners. So those agencies include the Florida Department of Transportation, Department of Transportation and Public Works, the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, the Port Miami, Miami International Airport, just to name a few. And they meet on a regular basis to give us feedback on our goals and objectives and many of the documents that we're creating for this process.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so let me see. I don't see checking everywhere. Nope. Okay. Francesca, that's the questions we have. Go ahead and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. All right, well, let's jump into our performance phase. This is the second phase, as we mentioned, of the LRTP. And in this phase, we plan to develop our goals and objectives. Now, in order to know where we are going, we must know where we've been. So with this in mind, we've created a transportation timeline that shows the advancements that we've made from 1990 to 2050. So on the slide in front of you, you'll see on the bottom on the x-axis, the years 1990 to 2050 plotted below. And along this graphic, you'll see different advancements in different color codes. So in the purple color code, you'll see societal advancements, such as Hurricane Andrew in 1992, the Great Recession, and even COVID-19. These events have shaped where people move, where people work, and even how they get to work. Next, in white, you'll see our bike and pedestrian advancements. These include things like the Underline phases 1 through 3, the Ludlam Trail, and the Ludlam Trail's expected completion in 2023. Then in yellow, you'll see our land use and policy advancements. This includes the Strategic Miami Area Rapid Transit Plan, or SMART plan, adoption in 2016. Next, in orange, you'll see our transit advancements. And what's interesting here is that you can see the evolution of the South Miami-Dade busway from its opening in 1997 to the implementation of bus rapid transit, which is anticipated in 2024. Then in green, you'll see our vehicular advancements, such as the Port Miami Tunnel opening in 2014 and the I-395 Signature Bridge which is scheduled for completion in 2026. Last but not least, you'll see some of the advancements that we anticipate for the future, such as the electric and alternative fuel advancements and autonomous vehicle innovations, and the advanced urban air mobility, which is forecasted in the 2030s and 2040s. Also, you'll see high-speed train innovations plotted as well. Going across the screen, you'll see plot points for our population and employment and how they've been estimated over time. So you can see how our county has grown in population steadily, and how how we've been able to provide jobs for our population over time. Population and employment is important data for us so that we'll know how many people will be moving around our county. To talk about this a little bit more, I'll turn it over to Tawari Edmondson, our Smart M.A.P co-lead, so that he can talk about how we develop our socioeconomic data. Tawari?
Hi, perfect. Thank you, Francesca. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you, Francesca, for that overview. I think that was a great overview of what the LRTP is, why it's important, and then the phases that are involved in our LRTP. So it's important to see where we're coming from and then where we are now and where we're going through the future. So for that, thanks Francesca again for the introduction once again to our Edmonds and Transportation Planner here at the Miami-Dade TPO. And I sincerely do thank you all for the time and opportunity to really discuss our long-range transportation planning process. Now, alluding to the chart that was just shown by Francesca, you'll notice that the population and the employment was highlighted and projected throughout the whole planning period. So let us dive into these two variables, among others, and see why they're so important to the transportation planning process. So looking at the screen here, what you see is an agenda of some of the items that I'll cover. So what we're going to go over is, why do we use population and employment data, right? What are these data sources? And then what are the different geographies and delineation of this data? And then lastly, we're going to go over how and why this data is projected into the future and how it's actually allocated. Next slide, please. So why do we use population data and employment data in transportation planning? So essentially, this data really helps planners to understand the travel patterns and the demands within a given area. By identifying areas of high population density and employment concentration, planners are able to develop transportation solutions that efficiently connect people to these areas. And population and employment estimates can be used to assess the demand for things such as, public transit, roadway capacity, bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, among others. So we use this to anticipate future growth and future transportation needs of the different demographics based on that projected growth. So overall, the estimates help ensure that the transportation infrastructure is not only designed, but designed to meet the needs of the people who use the infrastructure. Next slide. Now, seeing that this information is so important to the process, where do we get this information? What are the sources for this information? So for the population, we have a pretty straightforward source. We do get a 2020 population. This is obtained from the decennial census. And then this census population is further broken down into variables that further describe this general population, such as, the population that lives in group quarters, occupied housing units, age, income, household size, just real descriptive population to really kind of give information into the demographics of our region. And then the census information is also distributed spatially throughout the county and then allocated to specific census tracts, which I'll kind of review a little bit more later. Now for the employment was a little bit more involved process. So for our 2020 employment, we received an initial Dun & Bradstreet data set, which was provided by the state. And this included employment totals broken down by the North American Industry Classification System, which are the NAICS codes, and was spatially distributed throughout the county. And the NAICS codes breaks down this employment by things such as healthcare, construction, manufacturing, agriculture, such and so forth, so the different major employment categories. And this data was further vetted using an InfoUSA employment data set, which was procured by our RER department, along with the local knowledge from our RER planning department. So not only do we have the state data, but we also have our local data set and our local planning department. And we really do this to ensure that the employment estimates are reasonable for a region or for a county, not only by totals, but by industry and by location. Next slide, please. So now, going over the different geographies of this data. So as I mentioned earlier, we get the initial population data from the census. And to help explain my point, I want you to consider the matryoshka or nesting doll, where you can see at the top right, each different size geography, which is nesting into the next. So initially we get the data from the census at a tract level, which you can see here. And for a little bit of perspective in the top left, what you see here is, 1 square mile, which contains 2 census tracts. And this area is west of Tropical Park. Now, this census data is then further broken down and distributed into transportation analysis zones. What you see here is this data being broken down into 4 TAZs, and then even further broken down into micro-analysis zones. And what you see here is 20 MAZs. So for an example, if these 2 census tracts had, 20 people in them, 10 each, the MAZs would have about 5 each, each MAZ would have one. So that's how we kind of distribute that census tract information to get down to that micro level. And the TAZs and the MAZs are used in various transportation analysis depending on the project needs. Next slide. Now, so once we have the current data, once we know where we are, we have the 2020 population, we have the 2020 employment, which kind of really tells us the travel demand right now. It's our job to have that data projected. You know, given that we are developing a long-range transportation plan with a horizon year of 2050, we then use this current 2020 data to forecast and project what the future 2050 population and employment makeup will be and where the growth will be located. All right, so this will in turn help assess and plan for future demand. So during the projection and the data development, there were a couple of key variables impacting the future growth, which include, we saw some declines in fertility and migration, which have continued since the last 2045 forecast and are coupled with a slight increase in mortality due to COVID. Secondly, we also saw that the 2020 population estimates were a little bit lower than previously anticipated. So we conducted a sensitivity analysis, which resulted in a 2050 population control total estimate of about 3.3 million people for 2050. And just to give a little bit of perspective, 3.5 million was forecasted for 2045, the last time this effort was done. So growth is still expected, but at a slower than previous forecast anticipated. And you can see all the resources for this information on the slide in front of you. Next slide, please. So once we get the control totals now, so we have the 2050 population, we have the 2050 employment, what we now have to do is, where do we put this information? We have to spatially distribute this growth throughout the county. So to do so, what we do is we assess all the proposed development throughout the county. And what you're looking at is a tool that we have developed to review pipeline and project development. This really assists with the understanding of where we should expect future development and investment in our county, and helps to determine where jobs and housing will go and the type of jobs and housing that will be facilitated. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to take a pause right here just to see if turn it back over to Elizabeth and see if there's any questions in the audience. Elizabeth?
Wonderful, Tawari. Thank you so much. Let me see. Yes, we have a few. The first question is, will you be sharing these slides? And yes, we will. We will be sharing this information after this evening's done. We're done here. This will be packaged up in a video, of course, and we will be posting this on our YouTube channel. And so that is directly linked from our website, Miami-Dade TPO.org. You go down to the bottom, you'll see the YouTube, and it'll be the first video that you see that will be available. All right, let's see. We have another question. All right, here's one. I've heard of something called a transportation planning area. What is it, and how does it relate to the LRTP process?
Perfect. Great question, Elizabeth. So the transportation planning areas. So what we just went over is the population and employment forecast and why that's important to travel and transportation demand. So for the transportation planning area, we have to decide, where does this information go, this growth? So Miami-Dade County is divided into 7 well-defined geographical sections, identified by the Miami-Dade TPO as transportation planning areas. Now, each TPA is distinguished by its own characteristics, such as its growth rates, needs, and the transportation challenges. And the TPAs help to guide the development of the 2050 LRTP by ensuring projects are distributed equitably across the entire county. And we've actually just updated our TPAs recently. We had 6 TPAs prior to the 2045. Now we have 7. And the 7 TPAs are we have the beach area, the central area, the north, the northwest, the south, the west, and the newest, which is the CBD, which came in 2045. So great question, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, we have another one. All right, Francesca mentioned urban air mobility earlier. What is that, and do we have that in Miami?
So yeah, this is actually a good topic, I guess, for me to take. I'm actually working on a study for the TPO right now related to this. But essentially, urban air mobility, referred to as UAM, the acronym, is a transportation concept that involves using small electric-powered aircraft to transport people and goods around urban areas. So, think of like an electric drone, scale up to carry 4 or 5 passengers. The idea is really to provide additional mobility options and provide more efficient, sustainable, and faster mode of transportation for people and goods. And this will be covered in the emerging technology section of our LRTP. And as I mentioned, we're currently conducting a study on a framework on how we'd want to prepare and maintain a state of readiness to integrate urban air mobility into our current transportation system. Thank you, Elizabeth.
All right. We have a couple more questions, and this one, Tawari, I was actually working on our Title VI report the other day, and the question is, do you have estimates for visitor and tourist volumes? And we pulled that up the other day together. So go ahead, Tawari, I'll let you expand on that a little bit more.
So yeah, so we do have the estimates. We get that from the Greater Miami Bureau, and that is received from a report that we get annually. I'm not sure of the numbers off the top of my head, Elizabeth, but we can provide those numbers for the latest numbers for 2021, which is what we received, the most updated number.
Okay, great. Let's see, how can we see the previous 25-year transportation plan? And Tawari, I can answer that if that's okay with you or Francesca.
Go ahead.
All right. So if you go to our website, the main website, Miami-Dade TPO.org, go along the top, and I'm using my mind's eye, go along the top to programs, select the programs, and then you'll see, well, in fact, right on our homepage, there's a circle that says long range plan. Go right there. That'll take you to the webpage for the long range plans, and then you can see our I believe we have the 2040, the 2045, and we'll now have a link to the 2050. So that's where you can see our past plans. And let's see, we've got another one. We're getting some good questions coming in. How about this one? Is the Better Bus Network included in the LRTP, and will updates to our county's bus network be implemented as the TPO analyzes the population and employment distributions? Is that something? Go ahead, Francesca.
Hi, Elizabeth. I can jump in on that. So yes, as part of our congestion management plan, we will look at the existing network, and that will include our transit network as well. So once the Better Bus is adopted, we will include that into our transportation network so that we'll know, we'll see that as a piece of how the puzzle is kind of fitting together.
Excellent, excellent. And here's a question. I'm only gonna take one more question. So this is kind of, I think, a rhetorical question. I don't know if it can be answered, but I'm just gonna state it out. How would UAM be safely driven when people can't even use their turn signals here? And Miami often faces downdrafts from lightning storms. So I don't know if we need to answer that right now, but I did want to acknowledge that that question came in over the wires.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're doing our studies, to address concerns like that. So that's actually a very timely question. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, great. Fantastic. So let's see, any other, I don't have any other, all right, I don't have any others. So Francesca, you're up. You have the steering wheel again.
All right, thank you, Tawari and Elizabeth. So far we've talked about where we've been and where we want to go, and how population and growth and our employment helps us project where we want to be. Using this information, let's discuss the next steps, which is our goals and objectives development. So on this slide, you'll see, as a reminder, the LRTP is a federally required document. And as such, the Federal Highway Administration, or FHWA, provides a baseline of goals and objectives via their national goals. These include infrastructure condition, congestion reduction, environmental sustainability, and the like. Additionally, FHWA requires us to track performance measures annually. So we track things such as highway safety or Vision Zero, bridge and pavement condition, system performance and freight movement. We also track the condition of our transit assets and transit safety year to year. So these are our national goals and objectives and performance measures. But using this as kind of a framework, let's discuss a little bit more of what goals and measures we want for Miami-Dade County. So this is where the fun begins. On the next series of slides, we will go through a series of questions with you. They're interactive questions, and we hope to get you engaged in helping us develop our goals and objectives for the 2050 Smart Map. So I again invite you to aim your camera or QR scanner on the computer so that you can join our Slido questionnaire, or you can log into slido.com and type in the code 2050 LRTP. Again, that's 2050 LRTP, so that you can answer these questions with us here together. And just to give you a little bit of background, the first few questions will focus on our current condition, and then the next few sets of questions will focus on the future. And at the end, we'll ask you a little bit more about how you personally travel. So I'm going to progress to the next slide, which has our first question. Again, the instructions for joining us are still on the left-hand side of your screen, where you can join at slido.com using that code or scanning the QR scanner. And I see some responses coming in, which is great. What makes Miami-Dade County a great place to live, work, and visit? What brings people here? Awesome. Wow, our environment was in the lead, and then the diversity of people jumped up. That's good. And I see more people joining our survey. Good, good. I'll stay here a little bit longer to allow more people to trickle in and answer the survey questions. Okay, I see a message in the chat, food, we forgot amazing food. I agree. I think that's in the other. That's a great addition. All right. Oh, okay. We're still getting a few more. I just want to make sure everybody can log into the Slido slides and answer the questions on their phone or online. All right. I think we can progress to the next question. Thank you all. Looks like parks and the beach and our environment won. The next question is, which description fits your perception of Miami-Dade County's transportation network? How would you describe our current transportation network? All right, I see about 15 people. Okay, great. I think we can go to the next question. Moderately reliable. What do you think is the most important transportation need in Miami-Dade County today? Now, this one you can choose your top 3. What are the most important needs in Miami-Dade County today? Improving transit is winning. Looks like it's number one. We still have a few more people responding. Providing more travel options is number two. Improving safety. Okay, I think we can move to the next question. Which mode of transportation should receive more investment? On this one, you can also choose three. Which mode of transportation should receive more investment? If we had more money to spend, where should we put it? Top three. Oh, wow. Split. Wow, we have some hefty transit supporters, not only for our transit system, but it looks like regional rail keeps jumping back up there, and bike and ped. Awesome, autonomous and connected vehicles, not far behind. Okay. Okay, I think we can advance to the next question. How often do you travel to neighboring counties in the Tri-County Southeast Florida region? Now, when we mean the Tri-County Southeast Florida region, we're speaking of Miami-Dade County, Broward, and Palm Beach. So maybe you live in Broward, but you work in Miami, and you have friends and family in Palm Beach. How often do you travel across counties per month? Okay, 1 to 5 times a month. Some people travel a little more frequently. All right, great. I think we can go to the next question. Now, when you think about traveling to adjacent counties within the Tri-County Southeast Florida region, again, Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, what are the most important improvements you recommend we invest in? Check all that apply. What is the most important improvement for our Tri-County travel? And I do see a question out there. Reducing congestion doesn't necessarily mean more lanes. It could mean increasing the availability of transit. It could mean more transit signal priorities. It's not just increasing the roadway capacity or making more lanes on the highway. So there are different ways that we can improve congestion. It's also our bicycle and pedestrian network, micromobility, all of those things. All right, thank you for your responses. Now, so this, again, these questions were focused on our current condition. I'm going to toss it over to Tawari to talk about our future condition.
Perfect. Thank you, Francesca. So, no, as Francesca mentioned, the previous questions are focused on where we currently are, and additionally, kind of also highlights, our regional coordination. If you see, we do have some, or county is a part of a regional body, and if you notice, we do have some questions there. Just kind of give us some insight on the travel patterns for our region. But getting into where we want to go. So, in 5 words or less, describe how you envision Miami-Dade County transportation system in 2050. So what do you see for the future? How do you see your system? What would you envision for our system 25 years from now? The Netherlands was Miami. Resilient and sustainable. Efficient and reliable are up there. Connectivity amongst various modes, good one. All right, I'll give it 5 more seconds. Getting a lot of feedback on this question. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you. So move into our next question. So what transportation advancements do you anticipate by 2050? And for this one, guys, we can choose up to 3. So what are the advancements we see taking form? What do you envision by 2050 related to transportation in Miami-Dade County or for the region? High-speed trains, big winner. Telecommuting slowly creeping up. All right. So high-speed trains, clear winner. All right, thank you. So moving to the next question. So what should our transportation system look like by 2050? And for this one, please list in order of priority. Give this one a little bit more time since we have to rank them in order. All right. Smart program fully implemented. Light on, it's a top priority also for the TPO. Speech. Okay. All right, thank you. Next question. So for this one, this alluding to the TPA question from earlier, which you can see here, you can actually see the different transportation planning areas. Which transportation planning area do you currently live in? And as I said, you can see on your screen and on the phone the different geographies of the various transportation planning areas. Broward County, you're up there, huh? So a lot of regional transportation with Broward County. Broward County and Beach are the 2 highest, and Broward County is a complete different county. Very interesting. All right, thank you. Now for the next question, please. Now, which TPA do you work in? And this goes back to that population location and employment and the travel demand that we were discussing earlier. So where do you live? Where do you work? Interesting. So the beach in Broward County are where most of the people on the line live, but then the central is where a lot of people work. And Broward County is not even on the top 3 of where work. So a lot of the Broward County residents have to travel regionally for work. Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you. Next question, please. So on average, how long is your commute from home and from work, to and from home and to and from school? And I'm guessing this is going to be with as many Broward County residents that I just saw. I'm expecting to see some decent commute times. Okay, so the two highs, 15 minutes or less, and then 30 to 40, well, telecommuting. Pretty even distribution. So as many people telecommute as drive 30 to 45 minutes. Very interesting. All right, next question, please. So what is your age group? All right. So over half the people between that 35 to 54 demographic. All right, thank you. And I think that's it for our questions. I want to hand it back to Elizabeth to do our virtual walkthrough.
Excellent, Tori and Francesca. Thank you for those, the polling. That was very informative. Before I take you all through the walkthrough, we did have another question that came through, and I just wanted to put this out there. Let me see if I can see it. Where is it? All right. How does the TPO plan to better connect public train networks with connector shuttles to downtowns? Is this in the near term or further out? Micro transit solutions, for example.
Hi, Elizabeth. Yeah, that's a good question. So I think there's a couple elements to that question. First, there is the connection of Tri-Rail into downtown. I believe that connection is anticipated for later this year. So that will help kind of solidify the regional connection from our neighboring counties to the north. Additionally, as far as transit shuttles to and from those transit hubs, we do support and actually help kind of fund and organize smart demonstration projects. So these are connectors, first and last mile connectors to our major transportation hubs. In fact, the funds for the smart demonstration projects actually come from Florida DOT. And what we do is help create a network of first last mile connections to our major transit facilities. So agencies are able to apply for funding in order to operate these connectors, these smart demonstration projects, up to 3 years. And after 3 years, they have to provide proof of concept so that they can operate those smart demonstration projects on their own. So kind of 2 ways that we're supporting a regional effort and then how we help facilitate connections locally.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you, Francesca. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So I'll be stopping and I'm going to quickly take you all through our new Smart 2050 map or Smart Map 2050 website. And very quickly, so this is the home page. Of course, you have the address there. If we have a virtual event like tonight going on, you will always have it in the top left in order to basically, oh, is everybody, Francesca, are you seeing this okay?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, great. And so on the left-hand side, we have the virtual event if there's a virtual event going on. On the right-hand side, we will always have the current survey that is occurring. So right now we have the bicycle needs survey that Francesca asked you all to take part in, and we really encourage you, please, please take the survey. So it's pretty basic standard going down. It's got all the basic information, what we talked about, the LRTP state phases, our vision, the public involvement process, and then some Miami-Dade County by the numbers. Of course, if you want to get to the main TPO website, just come down here to the left and click on the logo, and it'll take you right to the TPO website. Of course, this website is ADA compliant and also shows up beautifully on your cell phone. So we're going to go over just to the plan really quick. So this kind of goes into a little bit more detail, explanation. It has your process phases and objectives, so you can spend time here finding out when each phase is going to occur. And then there's this transportation planning areas map if you wanted to look a little bit more in detail at it and study it. Again, here is the 2050 LRTP steering committee with everybody's logo. So if you press on a logo, select a logo, it'll take you to their respective websites. Going up to public involvement, we again here have the upcoming events, which you're in right now. That'll shift over to past events, and then we'll put any upcoming events on the left-hand side. Again, active surveys are always going to be here to the left. We want you to stay informed, so please sign up and get the most up-to-date information. I will come back to the virtual outreach room in just a second. And of course, you can always on the bottom right-hand side go to any of our social media sites. And let's go over now to resources real quick. So on our resources page, we have an interactive map, which will be coming soon. So kind of check back here whenever that becomes available. We have documents. You can click here. You can go to this new web page, and that will take you to, right now we have the public involvement plan there. We have our first fact sheet translated to Spanish and Creole. So you can go there and check out all of the LRTP documents on that webpage. We have our visual gallery here. You saw the dramatic unveiling of the 2050 LRTP logo, and we do have a video that is in production right now that we will be releasing shortly. FAQs, just kind of check these little arrows, and they go up and down, and you can read about some FAQs. All right, and then contact us, of course, very important. We want to hear from you. We want you to stay involved and engaged. So this is our information, and if you want to sign up, please pass this on to your friends, your family, your coworkers to get signed up. And of course, you can translate the website into all of these numerous languages if needed. So I'm going to go back real quick, and we are going to go to the virtual outreach room. So I'm unveiling for the first time to the public our virtual meeting room. I don't have any dramatic music, so I apologize for that. But here it is, and we are so excited to have our first virtual room. So you can spin around, you just grab, and you just kind of go around and check out the beautiful view and the people sitting around. And then if you need to see an image, you just click on it and it'll come up so you can read it and you can see it much better. This is how to use the virtual room. And so you can take the time if you want to go ahead and read those instructions. Again, you can click on every single one of these and just read them at your leisure. Now to navigate around the room, you just follow these arrows. You just click on the arrow and you come into the second room. Right now, as Francesca and Tawari have been explaining, we are in the performance phase. And so this is the performance area. So you want to come over here. If you want to take this, if you want to have your friends, your family, coworkers to take the survey that you just took, then you would select this and it'll take you to the survey and you can take that survey. Again, this is information. If you click on any of these, they will pop out. You can jump around from circle to circle. We have our video that is coming soon. But again, you just click on one of these and it'll pop out so you can see it much better. Then we can move around the room real quickly. And if you want to go to the middle of the room, again, you just click around and you can see the rest of the room. Now, you see all these coming soons all around the different rooms. Well, that is the different phases. As they become available, different areas of the room will then become available. And that goes all the way around. So as Francesca said earlier, all of our different phases will unlock and open each different part of the room. So I'm going to go back out to our lobby and say goodbye to our virtual room. And again, you can access this directly from the 2050 LRTP website under public involvement. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to ask the team to reshare the PowerPoint. Great. Okay. Oh, let me get myself organized here and get back to you all. All right, and I am coming back. All right, very good. So here is the 2050 LRTP management team. Again, you heard from Francesca Taylor, you heard from Tawari Edmondson, and myself. So here is our contact information. If you need to reach out to us, we are available to you. Next slide, please. So we're going to close out this event, which I think has been very informative, and I hope you have too, with any final questions. So let me see if I'm getting any information. Okay, yeah, we actually have a couple of questions. I love this. All right, does the 2050 LRTP include plans for developing more robust bicycle pedestrian infrastructure? Great question.
Thanks, Elizabeth. That is a great question. And yes, we do. We actually are in the process of updating our 2050 or creating our 2050 bicycle and pedestrian master network. So what this will entail is a look into our current bicycle and pedestrian network to understand where the gaps exist. And then we'll analyze how we can prioritize projects to fulfill those gaps. Additionally, similarly, we are also looking at other modes such as the freight network as well, and wanting to understand what issues might exist in that network. So great question. Yes, we are planning for the bike and pedestrian needs of Miami-Dade County. In fact, just to add another thing, the survey that you took earlier today will feed into the plan that I mentioned for our 2050 bicycle and pedestrian needs plan.
Excellent, excellent. All right, Francesca, and here's the last one I see on the line. All right, what does the TPO, here we go. What does the TPO do with the feedback received for the long range transportation plan?
So yes, it's another great question. So we're excited to facilitate the survey that we did this afternoon. Thank you all for participating. This is valuable information. So this survey in particular will be able to feed into our goals and objectives. And over the course of this plan, we'll continue to engage with you so that you can have your voice heard in our long range transportation plan. So that SMART 2050, our 2050 SMART map is all about you. We compile the information that we receive and we use it to inform our decisions on our long-range transportation plan. Excellent, excellent. All right, I'm just checking to see if there's anything else. I don't see anything else from the team coming through. But, you know, for all of you watching, our attendees, you have questions, please get in touch with us and we will make sure to respond to you in a timely manner. So, well, Francesca, Tawari, I am so excited. We've come to the end here. And you guys did an amazing job explaining the LRTP. I learned a lot myself. And so I'm very excited. And we want to thank everyone for attending and participating this evening.
We hope that you found this virtual event informative and engaging, and we encourage you to stay involved in the long-range transportation plan development process, as Francesca just said. Remember, please remember, you can share this website link to the virtual room with friends, family, and coworkers. We want them to fill out the survey you just took yourself. So please pass this on to your friends and family and coworkers. Because listen, the community's voice does matter. And as we continue to shape the future of transportation in Miami-Dade County together, we need to be heard. So again, on behalf of Tawari and Francesca and myself and the entire Miami-Dade TPO team, we want to thank you all again for participating, being here with us, and we hope you all have a wonderful night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.